Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, lean in for a moment, because I want to talk to some people tonight who have been through something you can't quite put into words. You've had a glimpse of something higher, something deeper, something spiritual, and yet instead of running with new energy, you find yourself standing still. You've awakened, but you feel unmotivated. You've seen the light, but you don't feel like moving forward. Can I talk to some real people in here? Carl Jung once said that enlightenment isn't about becoming perfect, it's about making the darkness conscious. Let me tell you, the moment you wake up spiritually, you don't just see the mountaintop, you also see the valley. You don't just see your potential, you also see the weight you've been carrying, and that weight, that truth, it can drain your drive if you don't know how to handle it. I came to tell you tonight that what you're feeling is not failure. It's not weakness. It's part of the process. Sometimes God strips away the false fire of shallow motivation so that he can replace it with a deeper flame, a lasting fire of vision rooted in truth. You are not broken. You are being rebuilt. You are not lost. You are being found. This is the philosophy of life that turns awakening into transformation. When you go through a spiritual awakening, at first it feels like a bright light has broken into your world. Everything looks different. Everything feels alive. Everything seems more connected. You begin to notice beauty where you once saw nothing. You sense a depth in life that you never experienced before. It's like scales falling off your eyes. Suddenly you can see what was always there, but hidden from you. That's the light, the clarity, the insight, the vision that awakens your soul and shakes you out of sleep. But here's the part most people don't talk about. When that light comes on, it doesn't only reveal the beauty, it also reveals the mess. When the room is dark, you can't see the dust, you can't see the stains, you can't see the clutter. But when the light shines, it illuminates everything. And this is why so many people feel a strange heaviness after they awaken. They expect endless joy, endless energy, endless passion, but what they encounter is the reality of their own shadow. Carl Jung taught us that every human being carries a shadow, the hidden fears, the repressed emotions, the unhealed wounds, the parts of ourselves we don't want to face. When you awaken spiritually, that shadow doesn't disappear. In fact, it becomes more visible than ever before. The light makes you see what you used to ignore. The light uncovers the pain you used to hide. The light confronts you with the truth you spent years running from. That's why some people, after awakening, don't feel motivated, because now the illusion that kept them moving, the illusion of chasing goals, the illusion of distracting themselves has been shattered. They can't hide behind the masks anymore. Awakening reveals both the light and the shadow. You suddenly realize that inside of you there is greatness, but also brokenness. Inside of you there is compassion, but also anger. Inside of you there is divine possibility, but also human frailty. And standing in that tension can feel paralyzing. You thought awakening would be like flying, but sometimes it feels more like standing still. staring at both the glory and the struggle within yourself. And here's the paradox: you need both. You cannot truly walk in the light without understanding your shadow. You cannot claim authenticity while denying what lives in the basement of your soul. The reason you may feel unmotivated is because your old way of moving was fueled by denial. It was fueled by distraction. It was fueled by running from what you didn't want to see. Now the light has exposed everything and you can't run anymore. This is where transformation begins. The shadow is not there to destroy you, it's there to teach you. The shadow is not your enemy, it's your unintegrated self waiting for love, waiting for acceptance, waiting for redemption. When you awaken, the universe, God, or whatever name you use, is not punishing you by showing you your shadow. It is inviting you to wholeness, because you cannot be fully alive if you only embrace the light and deny the darkness. You have to face it, name it, and integrate it. So yes, awakening reveals beauty, wonder, and the majesty of existence. But it also reveals fear, grief, and the parts of yourself that you've been avoiding. And that revelation can make you pause, can make you question, can make you feel like you've lost momentum. But in truth, you haven't lost anything. What you're experiencing is the cost of clarity. The price of seeing is that you can no longer pretend. The blessing of the light is also the burden of awareness. Awakening reveals both the light and the shadow, because without both, there can be no wholeness, no authenticity, no true transformation. There comes a moment in every awakening when the ground you used to walk on no longer feels solid. The things that used to drive you, the goals that once consumed you, the ambitions that kept you restless at night, suddenly they lose their power. The ladder you were climbing no longer leans against the wall you want to reach. What once seemed meaningful now feels hollow. And you find yourself asking, why don't I feel motivated anymore? Why doesn't this excite me the way it used to? It is because awakening dismantles illusion. And when illusions fall, so does the false motivation they created. Think about it. Before awakening, many of us live in a story handed down by society, by family, by culture. We chase success because we're told success will make us worthy. We pursue relationships because we're told they will make us complete. We accumulate possessions because we're told they will bring security. Those stories create a fire in us. It is not a true fire. It is borrowed, it is conditioned, it is inherited. And as long as we believe the illusion, we feel driven. But the moment awakening comes, that illusion cracks. You see through the story. You realize that success cannot give you identity, that relationships cannot fill a void, that possessions cannot create peace. And once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. The illusion collapses, and with it collapses the motivation that was built on it. This is why so many people after awakening feel empty, stuck, or unmotivated. It's not that they are lazy. It's not that they lack discipline. It's not even that they've lost their passion. It's that the old fuel doesn't burn anymore. The gasoline that once powered their engine has evaporated, and now they are left with silence, with stillness, with space. And in that space, the temptation is to panic. The temptation is to think something is wrong with me, but in truth, something is right with you, because only when the false motivation dies can the real motivation be born. Carl Jung taught us that much of what we call drive is a mask for deeper, unresolved desires. We strive for recognition because we have not recognized ourselves. We strive for approval because we have not approved of ourselves. We strive for achievement because we have not made peace with our being. Awakening unmasks all of that. It says, look, this is why you were running. Not because you truly wanted the goal, because you were trying to fill a hole. And once you see that, the running stops. Because the game no longer makes sense. The illusion no longer holds power. This moment of collapse is sacred. Even though it feels painful, it is the death of counterfeit purpose. It is the falling away of false fire. And though at first it feels like you've lost your drive, what you've really lost is the weight of pretending. Motivation that comes from illusion will always leave you exhausted, always chasing, never satisfied. But when it dies, you are given the chance to discover a new kind of movement, not driven by fear, not driven by lack, not driven by comparison, but driven by alignment with truth. So when you feel that strange emptiness after awakening, don't confuse it with failure. Don't confuse it with weakness. It is simply the silence that follows the collapse of illusion. And in that silence, you are being invited to wait for a different kind of fire, a deeper kind of drive, a motivation not born of lies, but of authenticity. Because motivation built on illusion was never meant to last. Only what is real can sustain you. Only what is true can carry you forward. And the death of false motivation is the birth of a life anchored in reality. When people speak about awakening, they often imagine it as an explosion of clarity, a burst of energy, a flood of inspiration that never stops flowing. What most don't realize is that after the storm of revelation, there comes a quiet. After the fire of insight, there comes a stillness, and that silence, though uncomfortable, is not a mistake. It is part of the process. The silence after awakening is not the absence of growth. It is the soil where transformation begins to take root. When your eyes first open to truth, it can feel overwhelming. You see life differently. You see yourself differently. You see the world differently. And that rush of awareness shakes your old foundations. But once the rush passes, you are left with space, an unfamiliar emptiness where old patterns used to live. No constant noise of distraction, no constant pressure of false goals, just silence. And in that silence, you may feel lost. You may ask yourself, why do I feel nothing? Why do I feel stuck? But what you are experiencing is the sacred pause, the still point where the universe holds you steady so that you can integrate what you have seen. Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the process of becoming whole, and he knew that wholeness does not happen in chaos alone. It requires reflection, digestion, assimilation. The silence after awakening is the time when your psyche is learning to reorient itself around truth instead of illusion. It is the moment when your spirit is absorbing the shock of new light and adjusting to its brightness. It is the season when your soul whispers, be still and know. Don't run yet. Don't build yet. Just sit with what has been revealed. But silence can be frightening, especially for those of us who have been conditioned to equate stillness with stagnation. We think if we are not moving, we are failing. We think if we are not producing, we are worthless. We think if we are not motivated, something is wrong with us. Yet in the spiritual journey, silence is medicine. Silence is cleansing. Silence is necessary. Just as the earth needs winter to prepare for spring, the soul needs quiet to prepare for new birth. This is why so many, after awakening, feel disconnected from the old drive, but not yet connected to a new one. It is the in between space, the liminal space, where the old self has fallen away, but the new self has not yet emerged. And in that in between, the silence surrounds you. It feels like nothing is happening, but in truth, everything is happening. The silence is not empty. It is full of unseen work. It is the cocoon stage where the caterpillar is no longer what it was, but not yet what it will be. To the outside eye, it looks like stillness, but inside, transformation is unfolding. The temptation in this season is to force yourself back into noise, to fill the silence with distractions, to create artificial movement so you don't have to feel the void. But if you resist that temptation and allow the silence to be what it is, you will discover that it carries wisdom. In silence, you begin to hear the voice beneath all voices. In silence, you begin to feel the presence that was drowned out by noise. In silence, you come face to face with your true self, stripped of all masks, free of all performance. So if you find yourself in the quiet after awakening, do not despise it. Do not rush it. Do not confuse it with failure. The silence is the teacher. The silence is the healer. The silence is the sacred pause that allows the seeds of awakening to sink deep into your soul. It is part of the rhythm of transformation, part of the design of growth, part of the journey toward wholeness. There comes a time when you realize that much of what you once called ambition was never truly yours. It was borrowed fire, a script handed to you by family, by culture, by the world telling you what you should want, who you should be, what you should chase. And so you ran. You pushed yourself to achieve, to prove, to compete, to measure up. You called it motivation, but underneath, it was the ego whispering, if I can accomplish enough, then I will finally be enough. That kind of drive can move you for a season, but it will always leave you empty because it is not rooted in truth. Awakening exposes this. Awakening strips the mask away. And in that raw honesty, you discover that true drive must come from alignment, not ego. Ego-driven motivation is fragile. It rises and falls with comparison. It depends on who claps for you, who notices you, who affirms you. One moment you feel unstoppable because someone praised you. The next moment you collapse because someone ignored you. That is the slavery of ego, and it can never sustain you. But alignment is different. Alignment means your actions flow from who you really are. Alignment means your choices rise out of your deepest values, not your deepest fears. Alignment means your energy is fueled by purpose, not performance. And when you live in alignment, you don't burn out chasing approval because your motivation is anchored in something eternal. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That becoming cannot be forced by ego. Because ego is always pretending. Ego wants to maintain an image. Ego wants to project strength and hide weakness. Ego wants to chase the applause of the world. But alignment is about authenticity. Alignment doesn't ask, how can I look successful? It asks, how can I live true to my essence? Alignment doesn't push you to outrun others. It pulls you to walk in rhythm with your own soul. And when you find that rhythm, your drive becomes steady, deep, and unshakable. Think about a river. A river flows with force, not because it is trying to impress anyone, but because it is aligned with its course. It moves because it must, because it was designed to move. That is the kind of drive awakening is leading you toward. Not the frantic sprint of ego, the steady flow of alignment. Ego burns out, alignment endures. Ego is anxious, alignment is peaceful, ego is fragile. Alignment is resilient. This is why, after awakening, many people feel their old motivation collapse. They no longer care about competing the way they once did. They no longer feel compelled to chase the same trophies. They no longer find energy improving themselves. And at first, this feels like loss. It feels like weakness. It is actually the clearing of space for something greater. It is the shedding of false fire to make room for a flame that cannot be extinguished. Because once your drive comes from alignment, it does not matter who claps, who doubts, or who notices. You move because it is who you are. You move because your soul cannot stay still. You move because alignment has become your fuel. So the real work after awakening is not about trying to get your old motivation back. It is about discovering a new kind of drive, one that does not come from ego's hunger, but from the deep harmony between your soul and your path. True drive must come from alignment, because only alignment can sustain you when the applause fades, when the achievements lose their shine, when the old stories no longer inspire you. Alignment is the well that never runs dry. Alignment is the anchor that holds you steady. Alignment is the source of a motivation that does not crumble under pressure, but rises again and again, because it is not borrowed, it is yours. When awakening strips you bare, when the illusions collapse, when the noise falls silent, when the ego loses its grip, you find yourself standing in a strange emptiness. What once gave you meaning no longer satisfies, and yet the new meaning has not fully revealed itself. This is the crossroads where many people feel lost, even broken. This emptiness is not the end. It is the beginning of something greater. Because after awakening, life calls you not to return to your old purpose, but to rebuild a new one. And that rebuilding is not a quick patchwork of borrowed dreams. It is the deep construction of a purpose aligned with your true essence. Rebuilding purpose after awakening is not about going back. It is about moving forward into lasting transformation. When you awaken, you can no longer live on autopilot. You can no longer chase goals that do not resonate with your soul. You can no longer pretend that shallow success is enough to sustain you. The awakening burns away what was false, and though it leaves you standing in the ashes, it is in those ashes that you are invited to build again. Think of it like a forest fire. At first, the flames look destructive, but when the fire passes, the soil is richer, the ground is cleared, and new life has the chance to grow. Awakening does the same for the human soul. It clears away illusions so that authentic purpose can take root. Rebuilding purpose takes courage. It takes patience. It takes a willingness to sit in the unknown until clarity emerges. Because this time, you cannot simply adopt society's blueprint or your family's expectations. This time, you must listen to your own soul. What matters to you? What makes your spirit come alive? What feels aligned with your deepest values, not just your surface desires? This is where the rebuilding begins, not in chasing what you are told you should want, in discovering what you truly cannot live without. Carl Jung believed that transformation happens when the conscious and unconscious come together, when the shadow and the light are integrated. In the same way, rebuilding purpose after awakening means integrating all of yourself, the parts you celebrate and the parts you used to hide. It means crafting a life that honors your wholeness, not just the fragments you once thought were acceptable. And when you build from that place, your purpose is no longer fragile. It is no longer dependent on external approval. It is rooted in authenticity, and that root runs deep. This is why the transformation that follows awakening lasts, because it is not based on temporary fire, but on enduring truth. When your purpose is rebuilt from authenticity, it can weather storms. When your purpose flows from alignment, it cannot be taken from you. When your purpose is born from awakening, it does not just change what you do, it changes who you are. You no longer move through life chasing meaning, you embody it. You no longer struggle to prove your worth, you live from it. You no longer fight to hold your place. You create space that only you can fill. The journey of awakening does not end with the collapse of old illusions. It begins again with the rebuilding of true purpose. And though the process is slow, though the silence feels long, though the rebuilding may challenge everything you thought you knew, it creates a transformation that is unshakable. Because once your purpose is rebuilt from awakening, it is not borrowed, it is not imposed, it is not conditional, it is yours. And from that foundation, your life becomes not just a series of moments, but a lasting transformation, a testimony of what it means to live awake.